Hi, I'm Alex, and welcome to the Research Room, a space to make research by the people for the people.
Perfect synergy.
Today, we're going to be talking about romantic relationships with the soon-to-be Dr. Liz Lozano. Yay!
Very soon. We'll see.
Yes, super soon. Um, so today we're all going to be talking about romantic relationships. Hopefully this is going to be exciting, but we'll see what happens with that. And I guess we're also trying to figure out like, is what's more important for relationship satisfaction? Is it you or is it your partner? And I think we'll walk through quite a few nuances to this question today. But let me just hand it over so that Liz can explain her paper a little bit. Her paper, Dyadic Effects of Attachment and Relationship Functioning. So Liz, hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me to talk about this paper. So what it has to do with is people's attachment style, right? So a lot of people want to understand, what leads to satisfying relationships with a romantic partner, and attachment, right, might be one way that, that could explain why some people are happier in their relationships. So attachment style has to do with how you approach your close relationships. So some people are securely attached, some people are insecurely attached. And we were trying to test this idea that there's something called the buffering hypothesis. So it's the idea that, couples where you have a discrepancy, right? So one person might be securely attached, one person might be insecurely attached. It's the idea that those people or couples like that might be just as satisfied as couples where, say, both people are securely attached. So we just wanted to test this idea, and we used two different samples to kind of see the effects that we did find. Did those actually replicate across the two studies? So
Cool. Yeah, no, super cool idea. And I think that hopefully we'll figure out some answer to this. I think that that that's like definitely important, right? Like to know, like, does your partner do anything in this relationship, right? Like,
yeah.
do they make it better? Do they make it worse? And depending on who they are, like, which direction might it go? So that's cool. Good question. What's the answer?
So the answer is no. So we were super surprised. I mean, yeah, it would make sense, right? So like the past research, granted, this was a study that was done, I think it was like in the 1970s or like maybe 1965. And back then, people used to use like samples that didn't have a lot of people. Nowadays, we know that you should probably have, a decent number of people that you're actually studying. But back then, I mean, they didn't have that. So they used what they had, I guess the resources at their disposal. And yeah, they found that there was a buffering effect. So our work, though, across the two studies, we did not find evidence of that. So it seems like there weren't, I could go into all the different things like actor effects, partner effects. There's a lot there. But in general, we didn't find that partners necessarily matter for like your relationship satisfaction. It seems more so that you being secure yourself, relatively speaking, that should make you more satisfied in your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, cool. So there was a lot in that answer that we need to pick apart.
Yes.
So I think first of all, like, yeah, that's that scientific point, right, on just methodology. There were different methods that were used in the past, and we
Yes.
typically don't do that anymore. Like there are special cases where like that is still very necessary
Right.
to like just see like the first steps on something, right, or like preliminary like analysis and results, and hopefully you can like build a better study based off of that. Maybe that's what they were doing in the past, right? They were
Yeah.
just setting it up for the future so that we can do better designs right now. Probably not, but maybe.
No, but it's
Maybe
good
they
that
were
they
just
even
so forward
tested
thinking.
this. They tested this because we wouldn't even have been able to do the study had we not known that there was this paper out there that looked at buffering. So,
Right. Yeah, I think if nothing else, in the past they were creative, and I will give them that.
Yes, very creative.
Okay, so you were able to do this. It's like a slight replication, like maybe not 100% the same what they did, but
Yeah.
definitely a replication of sorts to see with a better design, do you still see the same effects, or just like maybe not necessarily with the better design, but like in current day, like does this hold?
Right.
Um, so that's a great thing, right? Like science needs that like replication. We need to keep seeing like, is this a consistent like finding, or are there differences that we need to be aware about? So you're finding that it's different, that buffering doesn't seem to be a thing, at least not in your sample. Where do I begin with the questions on that though?
There's so
Um,
many. That's the problem.
so I guess yeah, maybe let's take a step back a little bit. Could you just like help explain what happened in this paper? I'm not this paper, the study itself. So you're saying that you have two different samples. What did these participants do?
Yeah, so one of them was like data that my advisor collected. So it was couples. It was from a community sample. So
Hmm.
they participated with their partner, right? So people are completing the self-reported attachment style, assessment. I forgot the name of it for a second. It's called the ECR RS, but
Yes.
basically it measures people's attachment style. So they completed that measure. They answered some questions about their satisfaction. So that was one of the samples. And then the other one actually had to do with one of my lab mates. So she has a study where it was like also kind of a community sample, so to speak, but it was actually mostly college students
Hmm.
in that one.
Hmm.
So there's a
Okay.
little bit of a discrepancy there in terms of like
Right.
who we're actually studying.
Yeah. So, I mean, my mind definitely went to like, did that discrepancy matter? Like, did you find different things like across the two different studies?
Yeah, which that's the question, right? Because usually when you find things, you might be saying, "Oh, well, this has to do with the sample, right? That because they're different." But it could
Mm-hmm.
just be a result of age too. So from
Mm-hmm.
what I remember, I think the college sample was a lot younger, and the community sample was a little bit older. So like I think the average age was like I don't know, maybe 30 something, close to 40. So definitely there's a difference in terms of like the
Hmm.
average age of participants.
Okay. So yeah, we have two different samples here. One more university, but the other one's still probably like young adults, to some degree.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of these differences that you ended up finding? Or was there anything consistent as well?
So the consistent thing was that we found what's called actor effects. So let me kind of just like explain, what that is. So
Hmm.
an actor effect is like, for instance, my attachment style, and is that related to my own relationship satisfaction? So basically, it's looking at both people in the couple, right? So dyad, two people. So it's looking to see like my attachment style, is that related to my relationship satisfaction? And then you
Hmm.
have a partner. So is my partner's attachment related to my partner's satisfaction? So we did find actor effects across those two studies. So it does seem to suggest that specifically like people who are more securely attached, they tend to have better relationship satisfaction. But if
Hmm.
their partner's insecure, it's not like they're getting a benefit from the secure partner. And that's because we didn't find consistent partner effects or
Hmm.
also like an interaction that we did. So that's like looking at the joint influence of like both people in the couple. So we didn't
Hmm.
find that there seemed to be partner effects or this interaction effect looking at both people in the couple.
Hmm. Okay, so the only thing that was consistent here was that as long as you're secure, you have better relationship satisfaction, right?
Yeah. It would
Okay.
seem to suggest that. That's not to say that happens all the time, right? But that seems to
Mhm.
be the trend, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, just like on average, that doesn't necessarily speak to like any given day. Like people still have bad days, people still have good days. Like,
Yeah, totally.
um, but yeah, on the whole, you might imagine that as long as you're secure, you probably are having better relationship satisfaction. And I think like when it comes to this whole idea of partner effects, like that's a super tough thing because I don't think your paper is really trying to say that partner effects in general don't matter, right? Like
Right.
I think just like thinking through this, like your partner, of course, has an effect on you, right? Like
Yeah.
you aren't just completely oblivious to them. Like you spend a lot of time with them. Hopefully, you're close with them.
Right.
Um, so yeah, things like that. Like I think it matters. Do you have any like ideas on why this actor effect was the only like consistent thing?
I mean, I have so many thoughts on this. I'm just trying to figure out like what's the best use to like explain this. I think for me it's that we didn't study this longitudinally, right? So this
Hmm.
is what we call cross-sectional, meaning like it's just one, it's like a one-time thing, right? Assessment. We're
Mm-hmm.
not, in other words, we're not tracking people's attachment style and their satisfaction like over time, like repeated
Mm-hmm.
measures. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think that if we did look at this longitudinally, that you might see that partners, tend to matter more so, right? So that there might be consistent partner effects if you study this
Hmm.
longitudinally.
Yeah, okay. So you think potentially like because it was only a one-time like snapshot of what's happening, like maybe the actor effects were the only thing that like mattered in this one moment where you're thinking overall, how might things be? But if you were to track this over time, maybe there are actually effects, and like your partner
Yeah.
is influencing something, right?
Yeah.
So maybe a good partner is actually like positively influencing the relationship, and maybe a bad partner is kind of bringing both of you down potentially.
Right. So I
Hmm.
definitely think that future research should like look at that. I feel like that's where a lot of this research is lacking, is that a lot of it is, as we call, like cross-sectional. So it's just a one-time study, and it would be
Hmm.
beneficial to like look at it over time.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of lacking, like we only as like romantic relationship and like close relationships in general, like that kind of research only now has it become the norm that you have both partners. Like
Yeah.
that was not the norm even just recently, right? Like it was a
No.
special case that like, oh wow, like look at this paper, they have both partners. Like,
And that's
but
a
that seems
success.
insane, right?
You're like, wow, there's two
Yeah.
people here that we're actually looking at.
Yeah, that is so insane that like I mean I understand it, right? Like it's difficult to have both people participate, right? Like maybe one is super like yes, let's do this, and the other one's like I don't want to. Like to
Yeah.
have both people motivated enough, like yeah, that's a tough thing.
Or just
Um,
other things like proximity, like maybe you're in a long distance
mm,
relationship or like things like that, and people live far away. So, like, there's practicalities too that make it hard.
yeah, totally. Interesting. So that's a good point. That like, I mean, there's so many different types of relationships out there, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember at all, like, were these married couples? Were these dating couples? Like, do you have any idea?
That is a great question. So that's another reason why I think that we had some, weird findings,
Mm,
because these were primarily dating couples. So the
mm,
majority of people were dating, and
mm,
it's funny because the original buffering paper that we're
mhm,
basing this off of, right? They actually had married couples who were in
mm.
more like established relationships. So potentially, right, that could be one of the things that maybe because we're looking at dating couples we don't see the buffering effect.
Yeah, totally. So okay, yeah, potentially there's like that age thing, but I think probably um that like commitment level too, right? Like that's such an important thing. If you
Yeah.
are already in a married relationship and you have been living together and you're like sharing like your money together and like you
Yeah.
have to like cook all the time with that person,
All
like
the
all
things.
together, just yeah, right? Like all the everyday like life things that people have to do, right? Like there's just more chance for like influence then, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to like if you're just dating and like maybe you see them like every other day or like something like that. Like even if you saw them every day, like it's not the same as living in the same space.
No.
Like,
Everything changes when you live together.
mhm.
Totally.
So yeah, that's such a good point. That that difference in marriage or not, like that could definitely make the difference. And definitely more studies would need to be done to like see if that is the real like difference between these things.
Kind of
Um,
relatedly, based on what you're
sure.
saying, that just made me think of something. So
Yeah.
we're looking at relationship satisfaction, right, as
Mm,
like our outcome
hmm.
variable or like measure. But there's
Yeah.
so many different ways, right, that you can index like uh, couple health, right? So there could be not just satisfaction, but like investment. There can be like
Mm,
commitment, like you said. So there's so many
mhm.
different ways that you can look at this. So I don't know. I kind of wish that we would have looked at different ways to like index couple health because there could be
Mhm.
differences with that.
Yeah. Oh, so do I put you in the hot seat or not? Let's see.
You can. It feels hot already. It's burning.
So this idea of relationship satisfaction, I think, of course, like people want to know that. Like I think that's such an approachable outcome, right? Like, are you satisfied or not in this relationship? Or like, what are the factors that might influence satisfaction? Like, people want to know that. But what are ways that this could change if this was something else? So, like, what if you actually looked at like actual behaviors? Let's say, do you think maybe attachment styles would like change someone's maybe their approach to like how they like argue with their partner, or like um how they might resolve conflicts or like things like that, right? Like how might that change?
That is such a great question. And I just have this intrinsic interest in that stuff anyway. I used to do
Mm,
work on like couples conflicts. So I don't know, that's
mm,
just a really cool idea, right? That maybe it's if you're securely attached, you know, you engage in conflict a lot better, right? So
mhm,
you engage in like positive problem solving, like you sit down with your partner, you know, so say like you're fighting about something and you need your own space. You're like, hey, I need to go off in the other room. I need to take a break from you for a second. But then you come
mhm,
back together and like you work on the problem and you like communicate. So I
mm,
definitely think that, you know, behavior, right? There could be that buffering going on that you have an
mhm,
insecure person and you have a securely attached person. And there could
mhm,
be those differences that maybe the secure partner, right, is like more understanding and they're like, okay, well, maybe I regulate my emotions differently, right, in the context of this relationship. So, and they kind of like engage in this perspective taking, and that kind of
mm.
helps with like couples conflict, navigating problems, things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I think that's like another reason for like why you really need to do like these longitudinal kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Or at least get more than one like assessment, because then you can like really start to see like a whole like process of things. Like maybe certain behaviors change, and like those behaviors I think would also end up relating to like satisfaction. So like you get different patterns, and just like more specificity
Yeah.
when it comes to these kind of results. Like right now we just have like this really overall kind of picture, which is like it's great again for like a first like start, but like what is the actual like process that plays
Hmm.
out? um and that gets complicated and
Oh,
it
yeah.
gets more and more I mean idiosyncratic is the word that I don't want to use.
That's true
uh,
though, you know. I feel like you need to use like different assessments and really look at behavior because that could matter, right? Even like positive and negative emotions, right? There's so many
mm,
things that you should like look at and tap into to see like how people are assessing, you know, their partner, assessing themselves in the context of their relationship, all of that.
mhm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, there's so many cool things here. I think let's take a step back. Okay. So what is the finding again? Let's
Yes.
very specifically lay
We're
out.
like
Um,
overcomplicating this here.
so the specific finding here is actor effects were more important than partner effects or
Mhm.
these interaction effects.
Yep.
And what that meant was if you are secure, if we're comparing that security and your partner's security, your own security wins out. But that doesn't necessarily mean other things also win out that same kind of way. So when it comes to like behaviors, when it comes to these emotions, like anything else that might be there, it's not necessarily like that. You could
Right.
test this, of course, right? Like you could have a different design and like ask them about these behaviors, ask them about these emotions, ask them about satisfaction and attachment and all these
Yeah.
things, and then start to compare like maybe it's actor stuff for some of these concepts. Maybe it's partner stuff for some of these other concepts.
Right.
But yeah, that is that is another study. So for now, that security, your own security, matters more than your partner's security when it comes to your own satisfaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems to
Cool.
suggest, again, like we don't know for sure because this is only 2 studies, but it seems that like the more securely attached you are, that leads to potentially higher satisfaction. I shouldn't say leads, that's causal.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
associated with.
It's associated, right? So what does that mean? If let's say you are more satisfied in your relationship, that could also influence how attached your attachment style, right?
Yes.
Do you want to like walk through?
Yeah, so it could be the case, right, that if maybe you're insecurely attached. So, we do have attachment styles with different people in our lives. So we have a general global style, and then we have like romantic partner, parents, all of that. So maybe it's the case that you're insecurely attached, but you have a secure partner. So maybe having a secure partner may make you more satisfied over time. Or maybe the more satisfied you are, right, in your relationship,
Right.
maybe that builds and increases your security over time.
Yeah, maybe you've had some pretty bad relationships in the past and
Yeah.
you became this kind of insecure person. Like that happens, right? Like no
Mhm.
judgment there. But like potentially in that kind of case, like you really need to track people and like their like life history. Like it can't just be
Yeah.
the snapshot sort of thing. But hopefully one day we'll get there as far as like research goes. But yeah, so again, if you had this like life history and you became this insecurely attached person, that could change if you are satisfied with this relationship and you start to like unlearn some of those like learned insecurities.
Yeah.
That's so hopeful.
Because those parental ones, I mean, the research shows, right, that there just seems to be like stable, attachment style is fairly stable, although it can change, right, over time. It can fluctuate in response to relationships. I mean, some of those dynamics it carries forward, right, in your relationships. And you have to learn if you're like insecure, not everyone is going to treat me this way, right? So it's kind of like unlearning those patterns, so to speak.
Yes, and that is a tough thing. We are saying it like it's a piece of cake, but it
It's
is
nothing.
a super tough thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many different routes that positivity could happen. I mean, again, potentially, like if we were to look at this longitudinally, like that good partner could make the difference in someone's life. We
Yeah.
don't see it here, but
No.
it definitely could be the case.
And it's probably through like the things you're talking about too, like communication, like all of those behaviors, that by virtue of being around that person and like living with them too, maybe you're like, you have those, you're experiencing all those things by virtue of being in close proximity. So.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm well, the work is cut out for sure.
Oh yeah. I'll leave that to other scholars to do. I probably won't. So
so okay, I think let's maybe wrap this up a bit. I want to give you a final chance. Like what else is there to say on this? Like what is that final word you want to say for the public? Given everything that we've talked about a lot of things
we have.
in this short time. What's that final message that you have?
I would say that it's not that, so I don't want people to understand or think that partners don't matter. I think it would be easy to assume, in the study, partners don't matter. That's not necessarily the truth, right? I would say that it's probably your own security, that the case that if you're more secure, right, that tends to be associated with increased satisfaction. So probably can't change people by virtue of like, I'm going to help my partner. I'm going to buffer these negative effects. But just trying to like be relatively secure yourself. And that should maybe lead to a more satisfying relationship.
Yes, tough stuff still.
Yeah.
How do you become secure?
I don't know the answer to that.
But I think that is like that's a message that definitely resonates with me. It's just like I mean, take care of yourself. Yes, like you get into like some sticky situations in life, whether that is a person that you're in a sticky situation with, or just other life circumstances. But like at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I hope that you can also like you can figure out a way to shape your own like happiness and destiny and all of that within
Yeah.
this. It's again, it's super tough. That's not to say lightly that like circumstances don't matter. Obviously they do.
Because a lot of
But
people
yeah.
have that understanding. They're like, oh, this person is going to make me complete, right? Or there's
Mm,
like always that, I don't know, it's not always said, but people sometimes think that. But I feel like the
mm,
results, again, they can't speak to this, but it's kind of like suggesting, right? That's not true, right? You should work on yourself um, and become more securely attached. And that
mm.
should be good.
Yes, at the very least, maybe it'll help. Maybe it'll help, like anti-buffer, like sort of thing. Like, your at least your bad partner won't take you down with them.
Exactly.
Okay, there's so much more that we could talk about with this, but let's wrap this up. I think.
Sounds good.
I think. Oh, I don't know. What else can I say about this? Like,
There's
just,
so much.
I think Liz already did a good job concluding, and she had her final word. Partners still matter, but your own security also matters, and so maybe prioritize that, and don't just try to like fall into the perfect relationship.
Yeah, that's better said than I did. That was great.
uh,
So clear.
uh,
So clear.
All right. We'll do more of this next time, and hopefully, not just with us, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Until then, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks for our next podcast episode, and I mean, enjoy some of our other content until then.
Yeah. We have a lot out there. So have fun.
Yes. Bye for now.
Bye.
With the summer breeze.